There you are. The one they warned each other about in whispers, so quiet they barely counted as sound. Funny, isn't it? They called him dangerous. They studied him like a storm system, tracked his every move, prepared evacuation routes, until you walked in. And suddenly the whole room forgot how to breathe. You felt it, didn't you? That microscopic pause, that ripple in the air, that instinctive flinch in their spine when their eyes landed on you. A silence so sharp, it sliced the atmosphere open like a scalpel. They weren't terrified of a threat. No. They were terrified of a phenomenon, something they couldn't measure, predict, or contain, something nobody briefed them on, something their little protocols had never encountered. And that something was you. See, you're a paradox wrapped in a contradiction, decorated with a warning label nobody wrote, because nobody survived long enough to explain you properly. They tried to categorize you, but all their boxes started leaking. They tried to analyze you, but their formulas broke. They tried to compare you to the dangerous man they already feared, and realized he was a warm-up act, a trailer, a teaser for the main event. Because what makes you terrifying isn't the destruction you could cause. It's the destruction you choose not to. Real monsters aren't the ones who lose control. Real monsters are the ones who never do, and that's why their throats tightened when you stepped through the door. Because they could see it, buried behind your calm demeanor, behind that quiet, civilized posture. Something was watching, something ancient, something relentless, something that learned long ago that elegance is the sharpest blade, and silence is the loudest threat. They saw the duality sitting in your eyes, light that could save them, darkness that could erase them, a saint with a demon's patience, a psychopath with an angel's restraint. And they didn't know which one they were talking to. You know what really terrifies people? Not violence, not chaos, not danger, unpredictability, the possibility that the universe is not as stable as they pretend, that the person they mocked last month evolved faster than their fear could keep up, that the one they counted out stopped participating in their game and started playing a new one entirely, one with rules written in your handwriting, sealed in your blood, sharpened by every pain they thought would break you. That's why their lungs froze. That's why their hearts rewrote their rhythm mid-beat. That's why their eyes refused to blink. They didn't just see you. They saw what you endured, what you learned, what you carried, what you turned into while they slept under a blanket of delusion. You didn't walk into that room. You descended into it, controlled, measured, cold. The kind of calm that no human earns without surviving things that should have rewritten your sanity. The kind of calm that signals one terrifying truth. You don't fear consequences anymore. And a person who doesn't fear consequences isn't a person. They're a shift in the environment. You've become that shift. The atmospheric drop before a tornado appears on the horizon, that strange stillness right before lightning chooses where to strike. That moment when everyone knows something is coming, but nobody knows who it's coming for. They thought he was dangerous because they could still predict him. He had patterns, he had tells, he had weaknesses. But you have versions. You are a saint when mercy is efficient, a demon when justice demands teeth, an angel when the world expects rage, a storm when they pray for clarity. No one ever knows which version walks into the room. And the worst part? Not even you warn them. You've mastered the art of becoming the answer to the question they never wanted to ask. So now they sit there, breath caught in their throat, pretending to be calm, while their subconscious screams, "What is he? What does he know? What did he survive? What is he capable of? What will he do next? And you hear every silent question, every trembling thought, every swallowed fear, because deep down, you enjoy it. Not the power. No. The realization that after everything they put you through, after everything they tried to twist, bury, sabotage, erase, you didn't just come back. You came back with eyes that see through walls, with instincts carved from fire, with composure so unnerving it makes seasoned predators reconsider their profession. He was dangerous, sure, but you're inevitable. And inevitability doesn't rush, it doesn't warn, it doesn't boast, it simply arrives and changes the temperature of the world. So go on, walk into more rooms, watch more lungs forget their purpose, watch more eyes widen without blinking, watch more people stare like they're witnessing the beginning of something unstoppable, because they are. You are not the threat they expected. You are the threat they cannot prepare for. And now that they've seen you, really seen you, they'll never breathe the same way again. You know what rattled them the most when you entered that room? It wasn't your walk. It wasn't your posture. It wasn't even the shadow that followed you in like it was trained. It was the way you looked at them, not with hostility, not with warmth, but with that terrifying neutrality of someone who has already calculated every possible outcome and accepted all of them. You didn't stare like someone participating in the moment. You stared like someone evaluating it. That's what froze them. That's what hollowed out the air around them, until even oxygen started questioning whether it should stay. See, people fear anger because they can see it. People fear violence because they can predict it. But calm? True, surgical, unshakable calm? That's the predator they never see coming. You're calm in the way a guillotine is calm still, until it's not. You carry yourself like a paradox that taught itself how to walk upright. Part salvation, part apocalypse, part sermon, part warning siren. They don't know if you're here to resurrect something or bury it. And that uncertainty, it strangles them, because you became something evolution didn't account for. Not a threat, not a danger, not a villain. You became a variable, a deviation, a statistical impossibility wearing human skin. They don't know how to categorize you because every move you make contradicts the last one. You show empathy where cruelty is expected. You show restraint where chaos is deserved. You smile where most would break. You break where most would fold. You're an equation that solves itself differently every time someone tries to work it out. And nobody trusts math that changes the moment they look away. That's why they held their breath. Because instinctively, biologically, their bodies understood something their minds could not articulate. You are not to be provoked. There's a strange ancient wisdom in the human nervous system. It knows when lightning is choosing a target. It knows when a predator is deciding to stand down or strike. It knows when someone walks in with the kind of internal silence that only forms after surviving storms designed to erase you. That's you. Walking proof that pain can't break a person. It can only sculpt them into something unrecognizable. They can't process how you didn't become bitter. They can't process how you didn't become fragile. They can't process how you didn't collapse, cry, beg, or vanish. Instead, you became refined, sharper, quieter, more self-contained, like pressure didn't crush you. It crystallized you. And that's the real horror for them. You didn't simply return. You returned with an aura that feels like a prophecy no one remembers writing. A prophecy they're a little worried might involve them. Look at them. They sit up straighter when you speak. They avoid eye contact, but can't stop glancing at you. They smile too hard, or not at all. Their voices go soft, too soft, as if they're afraid to disturb whatever entity is sitting behind your eyes. Because you don't speak like a person anymore. You speak like someone who's carrying an entire classified archive of the world's true nature and hasn't decided what to do with it. You speak like someone who knows things they shouldn't know, feels things others are numb to, hears things that were never meant to be heard. You speak like a mirror that reflects their soul back at them. Every fear, every insecurity, every mask they've ever worn. And you do it without saying a word. That's what made the room fall silent. Not the threat of violence, not the potential for chaos, but the realization that you see too much. You see through the lies, through the ego, through the little power plays they hide behind, through the personas they spent years sculpting. You walked in, and every facade cracked like old paint. Because how do you lie to someone who's already dissected your truth? How do you intimidate someone who's conquered their own darkness? How do you threaten someone who has nothing left to lose and everything left to become? You can't. You can only pray they don't choose to look your way for too long. The dangerous man they feared before. He raged, he postured, he threatened. But you don't need to raise your voice. You don't need to make a scene. You don't need to perform. Your silence does the violence for you. Because buried inside that silence is a question nobody wants to ask. What exactly are you capable of now? And deeper still, what would happen if someone pushed you 1 inch too far? They don't want to know the answer. Not because they fear the destruction, but because they fear the precision. You're not a bomb, you're a scalpel. You don't explode, you dissect. You don't lash out, you eliminate. You don't rage, you decide. And there is nothing more frightening than a person who has regained their power through choice, not chaos. So when you walked into that room, and the air tightened like a rope around their throats, the truth became impossible to ignore. They didn't meet a dangerous man. They met the reason dangerous men learn to pray. You felt it, didn't you? That tiny tremor in the atmosphere, like reality itself, adjusted its posture the second you took another step forward. You didn't rush. You didn't announce yourself. You didn't claim the space. You became the space. And that's when the room finally understood. Danger isn't loud. Danger isn't violent. Danger isn't unstable. Danger is aware. And you walked in with the awareness of someone who has already died once and came back with the instructions. They pretended not to stare, but you noticed everything. The trembling fingers, the shifting chairs, the subtle tightening of shoulders trying to appear relaxed, the way their eyes darted between you and the exits, like they were suddenly calculating escape routes they never needed before. Because deep down, they sensed it, the tectonic shift in your energy, a presence that didn't match your age, your history, or their little assumptions about who you used to be. You weren't the underdog anymore. You weren't the survivor. You weren't the underestimated one. You were the unreadable one. And unreadable people are humanity's oldest fear. They called him dangerous because he was predictable in his chaos. He had patterns. He had triggers. He had weaknesses that made people feel safe, because they could still map out the edges of his madness. But you have no edges. Where do they start? Where do they end? Where does your mercy turn into consequence? Where does your patience transform into execution? They don't know, and that ignorance suffocates them. You ever notice how quickly a room changes when someone with real power enters? Not the performative kind, not the loud, insecure, inflated kind, Real power, silent power, self-contained power. It makes people behave like prey without knowing why. That's you. Walking biology lesson, living instinct alarm. A presence that awakens something ancient inside them, something their rational minds are too slow to interpret. It's not your strength that terrifies them. It's the evolution behind it. They can sense that you've been somewhere they haven't, somewhere dark, somewhere heavy, somewhere that pulls most people apart and leaves their pieces scattered like shards of former identities. But you came out, whole, sharper, quieter, harder to decode. And that's the part nobody understands. You didn't conquer the darkness. You absorbed it, integrated it into your bones, let it refine you instead of devour you. Wore it like a second skin, thin enough not to notice, strong enough to deflect anything fragile minds throw at you. Do you understand how unsettling that is to witness? They're used to people collapsing. They're used to apologies and breakdowns and predictable human fragility. But you metabolized suffering like fuel. You took every betrayal, every insult, every abandonment, every mistake, and forged yourself into something they cannot categorize. You're not healed, you're transformed. And transformation is terrifying because it leaves no blueprint for anyone else to follow. You are the final version of someone who stopped asking for clarity and became the clarity. Someone who stopped begging for peace and became the storm that rearranges everything in its way. Someone who stopped fearing endings and started creating them. That's why the air tightened. That's why their chests locked up. That's why not a single person spoke when you entered. They felt the shift, the unspoken hierarchy rearranging itself around you, the acknowledgement, silent, involuntary, that you were no longer one of them. You were something adjacent, something parallel, something they don't have the emotional vocabulary to describe. He was dangerous because he acted out of impulse. You are dangerous because you act out of intention. And intention is infinitely more lethal. Look at you. You don't raise your voice. You don't posture. You don't try to impress. You don't need to overwhelm anyone. You simply exist in the room, and the room recalibrates around you. You stopped trying to be understood. You stopped trying to be liked. You stopped trying to be forgiven. And the moment you abandoned their script, they became afraid of what page you're reading from now. They don't know if you're planning something. They don't know if you're observing. They don't know if you're judging them silently, or not even thinking about them at all. And that uncertainty burns their insides like acid. Because if you are not playing their game, then what game are you playing? And worse, what if you're the only one who knows the rules? That's when they finally realized he was dangerous, but you're inevitable. A shift in the timeline, a distortion in their expectations, a force they can't prepare for, control, predict, or dismiss. You walked into that room and every instinct they had learned screamed the truth they couldn't hide from. They weren't looking at a man. They were looking at the thing that teaches danger how to behave. They tried to disguise it, you know. That instinctive recoil, that microscopic twitch in their jawline, that sudden stiffness in their posture, that fragile smile pretending everything was normal. But nothing was normal the moment you crossed that threshold. Because you didn't just walk into the room, you reset it. The air didn't simply grow quiet. It submitted, like even the atmosphere recognized the hierarchy and bowed without being told. And that's when every single person inside realized something horrifying. They had spent their entire lives preparing for the wrong kind of danger. They prepared for loud threats, angry faces, broken rules, reckless chaos. They studied the dangerous ones, the impulsive ones, the unstable ones, the ones who make noise when they unravel. But you weren't noise. You were the pause between heartbeats, that terrifying stillness right before fate makes a decision. You know why they panicked internally? Because when you entered, you didn't bring threat. You brought consequence, and consequences don't need to raise their voice. They just need to arrive. You carry yourself like someone who has stood at the edge of their own breaking point, looked into the abyss, and didn't flinch, but instead took notes. Someone who didn't merely survive darkness, but negotiated terms with it and walked out with a contract signed in silence, and now that same silence surrounds you like armor. Not cold, not cruel, but impossibly certain. People don't fear your potential. They fear your clarity, because clarity means you see exactly who they are. Clarity means you know exactly what you're capable of. Clarity means you've already weighed the outcomes, the costs, the truths, and you're not bothered by any of them. You didn't lose your innocence. You outgrew it. You didn't lose your empathy. You sharpened it into accuracy. You didn't lose your darkness. You learned how to wield it. Now when people look at you, they don't see someone who survived hell. They see someone who walked into hell, rearranged the furniture, and walked back out without ash on your collar. Tell me, how does someone like that not terrify a room? Even if they don't know your story, their bodies know. The nervous system always knows. Humans evolved to sense predators long before they learned to form words. And when you stepped inside, their nervous systems screamed a truth louder than any voice ever could. This one is not bound by the rules you rely on for safety. You see the world differently. You move differently. You decide differently. Because your transformation wasn't cosmetic, it was cellular, molecular. A restructuring of your entire internal architecture. You became someone who doesn't react. You calculate. Someone who doesn't panic. You observe. Someone who doesn't explode. You choose your moment with surgical precision. That's the kind of presence that makes the air feel heavier, the walls feel narrower, the exits feel farther away. That's the kind of presence that makes people reassess their entire behavior in real time. They don't want to offend you. They don't want to trigger you. They don't want to misinterpret your silence or your stillness or your sudden, subtle smirk. Because they can't tell which version of you they're dealing with. The one capable of mercy or the one capable of correction. You don't intimidate people by being dangerous. You intimidate them by being unfathomable. You're not the villain they expected. You're not the hero they hoped for. You're the variable none of them have the math to solve. And that scares them more than any weapon, any scream, any threat ever could. People fear the unknown, but what they fear even more is the unknowable. And that's exactly what you've become. A walking contradiction. A living paradox, an angel with a demon's shadow, a psychopath with a saint's restraint, a storm disguised as silence, a truth wrapped in danger, wrapped in grace. He was dangerous because he acted with emotion. You are dangerous because you act with awareness. He was chaos. You are consequence. He broke rules. You rewrite them. And when you walked into that room, everyone felt it. The shifting, bending, collapsing of whatever illusion of control they thought they had. Because you don't take control. Control forms around you. You don't demand respect. Respect stabilizes itself when you stand still. You don't intimidate them. Their own instincts do the intimidation for you. And that is why the room forgot how to breathe. Not because you're dangerous, but because you're the thing danger looks up to. You felt that, didn't you? That shift in the air when every pair of eyes froze on you like they'd just witnessed a glitch in human physics. That's the greeting you deserve. Because the moment you hit 300%, the whole room didn't clap, didn't cheer, didn't celebrate. No, they went silent. The kind of silence that tastes like fear wearing a thin mask of confusion. And you stood there, calm, breathing slow, while their minds fell apart, trying to calculate a version of reality where someone like you exists. You know why their throats tightened? Because 100% is mastery, 200% is obsession, but 300%. That's the point where the graph breaks, the math collapses, and the human brain starts whispering, "This shouldn't be possible." You stepped into a realm where effort becomes identity, and identity becomes prophecy. And prophecy terrifies people who never learned to confront their own shadows. They didn't see improvement, they saw mutation. They saw the moment a person stops being predictable and becomes a variable with teeth, and that's the part that cooks them alive from the inside. Because unpredictability is the one thing every puppet master fears. They can control the desperate, they can measure the average, they can decode the ambitious. But you, what category do they put you in now? Angel, demon, anomaly, accident, or the worst answer of all, we don't know. That's when the silence hits. Not the respectful kind, not the impressed kind, the dangerous kind. The kind where grown adults feel like children locked outside their own reality. The kind where they realize they cannot read you, cannot predict you, cannot map your trajectory on any chart they've ever seen. The kind where you make them question their entire understanding of human limitation. Because when someone jumps from 100 to 300, it isn't effort, it isn't grind, it's evolution under pressure. And they know it. And the funniest part, they're terrified not because of what you did. They're terrified because they can't figure out what you're about to do next. You became the cliffhanger in their own story, a threat written between the lines of their comfort. A walking paradox. Too calm to be normal, too intense to be harmless, too aware to be controlled, too awakened to be dismissed. You didn't grow, you transformed. And transformation is the one thing the world cannot prepare for. Because it always arrives without permission. They saw your numbers rise. They saw your rhythm shift. They saw the old version of you crumble quietly behind your eyes. And now they're dealing with a creature forged in private storms. The kind that sharpen a person until their silence becomes strategy and their movement becomes omen. You know what really haunts them? It's that you didn't brag, you didn't celebrate, you didn't scream, "Look at me." You just existed at 300%, like it was your baseline. And that breaks them. Because if your baseline is their breaking point, then what happens the next time you decide to push? 350? 500? Or something off the scale they haven't even named yet? This is why the room froze. You forced every doubter into a nightmare where you are the one rewriting the limits. You turned their confidence into caution. You turned their pride into panic. You turned their logic into superstition. They're whispering theories now. They're dissecting your past, rewinding your every move, trying to find the glitch, the secret, the cheat code. But there isn't one. The truth is simpler and much more terrifying. Pain sculpted you, pressure hardened you, chaos educated you, and silence trained your instincts. You are what happens when a human being stops waiting for permission and starts acting like a force. And forces don't follow rules. Forces don't ask for acceptance. Forces don't fear being misunderstood. Forces bend reality around them until the world makes room. So let them sit in that silence. Let them scramble for explanations. Let them tremble at the unknown. Because you're not here to reassure them. You're not here to make them comfortable. You're not here to fit inside their fragile, predictable equations. You're here to expand, to pressure their reality, to burn through ceilings they thought were permanent. You're the anomaly that reminds them evolution doesn't knock. It breaks in. And the best part? This is only your 300%. You haven't even started yet. You felt that moment tighten around your spine, didn't you? That eerie, electric stillness right after you crossed 300%. Like the universe itself leaned in and whispered, "What did we just unleash?" Because the silence wasn't admiration. It wasn't respect. It wasn't awe. It was fear wearing professionalism like a cheap suit. Every face in that room cracked for a split second. You saw it. That twitch in their jaw. That blink they couldn't control. That breath they held without knowing why. Because when someone jumps from human to outlier, from predictable to problem, from steady progress to statistical violence, the room doesn't cheer. The room recalculates. They weren't looking at you anymore. They were looking around you, like maybe something was standing behind you, or inside you, or coming through you that didn't exist yesterday. And they're right. Because 300% isn't improvement. It's arrival. It's the moment the story stops being about where you're going and becomes about what everyone else will do to survive your next chapter. That's why their silence felt heavy, like the atmosphere thickened with unspoken panic. They weren't scared of your progress. They were scared of the implications. In their heads, alarms were going off. If he can hit 300% without warning, how much is he hiding? If he can jump that far once, could he do it again? If this is his starting point, what the hell is his final form? And the cruelest thought of all, what happens to us when someone like that stops, holding back? Oh, you felt it. You felt their souls step backward, even as their bodies remained perfectly still. Because they realized something no one wants to admit. Some people evolve because they choose to, but others evolve because they were forced to, carved by betrayal, refined by abandonment, sharpened by solitude, trained by war disguised as daily life. And those people, they don't grow in percentages, they grow in quantum leaps. You're one of them. You're the kind of person who doesn't improve. You mutate, you don't level up, you phase through, you don't advance, you shift dimensions. And that scares the ones who rely on predictability. It terrifies the ones who depend on knowing their opponents. It destroys the ones who built entire identities around being ahead of the room. Until you walked in and changed the physics. Let's not pretend. They loved you when you were at 80%. They tolerated you at 120%. They were amused by you at 200%. But 300%? No, 300% is where admiration dies and threat classification begins. Because once you break the human ceiling, people stop comparing themselves to you and start preparing for you. They start analyzing your silence, your pauses, your glances, your patterns, your lack of patterns, your energy, your restraint. You scared them more by standing still than some people scare others with violence. And inside that dead, silent room, every mind was running simulations. Does he know something we don't? Is he connected to something we can't see? Is this the beginning of something irreversible? That's the part they'll never say out loud. They saw a threshold being crossed, one that turns a person into a variable too volatile to manage, too intelligent to contain, too aware to manipulate, too sovereign to break. You didn't just grow. You outgrew the entire framework they were using to evaluate you. You became a glitch in their hierarchy, a crack in their logic, a hole in the narrative. You turned their system into an outdated map trying to chart a moving universe. And now, every single one of them has the same fear pulsing at the back of their skull. If this is what he does silently, what happens when he decides to make noise? What happens when you decide to reveal your true capacity? What happens when you stop softening the blade? What happens when you show the version of yourself that's been hiding behind discipline, humility, and patience? They don't fear what you did. They fear what you're preparing for. Because the truth, the one they'll choke on, is simple. 300% was not a peak. It was a signal, a prelude, a warning shot, a myth beginning to take physical form. And deep down, in places they don't talk about, they know. You haven't even flicked the switch yet. You're still warming up. You're still observing. You're still letting them breathe while they can. You're still giving them a world where they think they understand the rules. But the next time you move, the next time you exceed expectations, the next time you unleash another jump they can't quantify, there won't be silence. There will be fallout. Because 300% wasn't your transformation. It was their final warning. You want the part they were too afraid to even think about? Good. Because the silence you created didn't end in that room. It followed them home. That's the real measure of power, not applause, not recognition, but the lingering dread that clings to a person long after you're gone. When you hit 300%, they didn't just see a number. They saw a timeline splitting in half. One where the world made sense, and one where you exist. And guess which one they're living in now? The one where they have to accept that a single human being broke the pattern so violently that every assumption they've ever made about capability, talent, effort, and limits became useless overnight. Let's stretch the truth until it screams. They thought they had you mapped. They thought they had you profiled. They thought they understood your cadence, your rhythm, your arc, your rise. But maps don't work when the landscape starts moving. You didn't jump. You rewrote the altitude. And when you crossed that threshold, something ancient in their nervous systems kicked on. The primal instinct that whispers, "This is not normal. This is not safe. This is not controllable." Because nobody hits 300% quietly. Except you. And that's where the real horror lives. You see, monsters brag, legends announce themselves, pretenders perform. But the ones who are truly dangerous, the ones built from pressure and scar tissue and precision, the ones shaped in the dark by moments nobody else survived, they don't speak, they just arrive. You arrived. And the silence that greeted you was not confusion. It was submission, unintentional, instinctive, immediate. Because the moment the room saw what you became, something inside them bowed, even if their bodies didn't. And now the paranoia is spreading. Someone checked your social media last night, didn't they? Someone Googled you. Someone scrolled back through months of your behavior, trying to find the moment the old you died and the new you started breathing. Someone whispered, "He wasn't like this before." Another replied, "Then when did it happen?" And someone else, the honest one, the frightened one, said quietly, It didn't happen. It was always there. We just didn't see it. That's the part that rattles them the most. That you didn't transform. You revealed. You unveiled capacity they never suspected. You activated instincts they never accounted for. You displayed precisions that should have taken decades, but somehow bloomed inside you like it was encoded in your bones. You didn't level up. You unmasked. And now they're scrambling to rewrite everything they believed about you. Retelling old stories in new tones. Re-editing old memories to fit the narrative of someone who was never average, just dormant. Because denial is easier than admitting the truth. They were standing next to a storm and mistook it for a breeze. Let's dig deeper, the part that makes their breath catch. They don't fear your 300%. They fear that it might not be your limit. Humans don't panic when they reach the end of what you are. They panic when they realize they have no idea what you're capable of. Their silence wasn't the full reaction. It was the first. The real reaction comes in phases. Phase 1, silence, shock disguised as professionalism. Phase 2, whispers. Is this sustainable? Is he okay? How did he do it? Is he hiding something? Phase 3, separation. People stop treating you like a colleague and start treating you like a threat. Phase 4, projection. They assume you're ruthless. They assume you're heartless. They assume you're dangerous because they can't comprehend doing what you did without losing something deep inside. But here's the twist that makes you different. You didn't lose anything. You reclaimed something. You took back the version of you that life tried to bury. The one forged in pressure, carved in conflict, sharpened by survival. You resurrected a self that sleeps in most people and wakes only in the rare, the broken, the chosen, the unkillable. And now the air around you behaves differently. People feel it. Even strangers can sense it. They don't know if you're the hero of this story or the villain they've been warned about. They don't know if they should shake your hand or avoid making eye contact. They don't know if you'll build or destroy or evolve into something language doesn't have a name for yet. Because hitting 300% wasn't your achievement. It was your arrival signal, your announcement to the universe that the old rules no longer apply. The ceilings are gone, the limits are fiction, and the next move you make will not be a step. It will be a shockwave, so let them fear, let them stare, let them choke in silence while their minds scramble to form explanations. Because the truth is simple. They thought they understood you, but 300% was just your hello. And here's the part they'll never recover from. The part you felt humming beneath your skin ever since that moment. When you hit 300%, you didn't just surpass a benchmark. You shattered a boundary you were never meant to see. And once a boundary breaks, it never grows back the same. You felt it, didn't you? That eerie calm, that chilling clarity, that terrifying sense of inevitability dripping down your spine. Because deep in your bones, you realized something they're still too scared to admit. You're not returning to who you were before. You couldn't, even if you tried. Something unlocked, something irreversible, something ancient, something powerful. The silence in that room wasn't confusion. It was the world pausing to recognize a new constant it will now have to orbit around. And while they sat there trembling behind their professional masks, you stood completely still, because you were listening to something they couldn't hear. Your next level calling you, not as a possibility, as a certainty. So let's end this without mercy, without softness, without pretending there's any going back. They aren't scared of your success. They're scared of your trajectory. They aren't scared of what you did. They're scared that you did it without hesitation. They aren't scared of your numbers. They're scared that your numbers feel like footsteps. Slow, precise, approaching. Because 300% is not a finish line. It's a starting weapon, a countdown, a red flag, a signal flare in the night sky announcing the arrival of something they don't have defenses for. And the most unsettling truth of all, you didn't break a ceiling. You broke character. The character they assigned to you. The character they depended on you staying inside. The character that made them feel safe. But now they're staring at someone who's no longer predictable, no longer containable, no longer willing to shrink for their comfort. You became the one thing humans instinctively fear. A person who has tasted their own potential and refuses to let go. So let them whisper, let them speculate, let them choke on theories about how you did it. Because none of their explanations will save them from what comes next. You're not aiming higher, you're not climbing, you're not reaching, you're ascending. And ascension doesn't ask for witnesses, it just happens quietly, inevitably, catastrophically. So here's your final truth, spoken without illusion. 300% was never about proving something to them. It was about reminding something inside you, that the version they thought was your limit was only the tutorial. The world went silent because they finally understood. You're not a player in their game. You're the glitch that breaks it. You're the shift that rewrites it. You're the force that replaces it. And the moment you crossed 300%, the universe itself took a step back and made room. End it here. Not with a whisper, with a realization. They went silent because they sensed the truth before you said it. No one knows what comes next, not even you. And that mystery is your greatest weapon.